It's me, Percita, and this is Percita's Paradox. So here we are. It's Thursday. We're excited. We're coming up on the weekend. Cannot wait. People are all like, flipping out. It's Valentine's Day weekend. We're trying to figure out how we're going to handle this COVID-ly, respectively, because, of course, last year we didn't get hit with all the mandates of stay-at-home orders and things like that until March. So February, we were kind of cruising. Matter of fact, I was actually in France this time last year. So it's going to be a little strange for me as well. But what are you doing? What is your weekend like? Are you married? Are you single? Are you in a relationship? What's happening? What are you going to do with your weekend scenario of Lover's Lane, right? When we think of Valentine's Day, we typically think about the time of the year that everyone is in love or trying to be in love or trying to be upset that they're not in love, right? It's just one of the three. So today I really wanted to touch bases on, just the question of who's responsible for actually loving you. And when I say it like that, I want to really hone in on the aspect of whose responsibility do we individually feel like it should be. I know I've heard a few people through the years, they're very self-initiated, right? They're self-propelled. They talk about things like, in a relationship, out of relationship, I'm good no matter what, hell or high water, it's me or, nobody else, I can do all these things by myself because I'm self-sufficient. And then you have the others who are really down and miserable around this time of the year, specifically coming off of the holidays, seeing that, that is a very family time. And now, we roll into the top of the year, and the top of the year emphasizes this thing of Valentine's, and we typically don't have any celebratorials for people who are not really celebrating. It's almost as if either you are or you're just not normal, so to speak. So I'm interested to know what is your mindset in regards to in a relationship or out of a relationship? Let me say it that way. Who's responsible for loving you? Now, I love to say that we are all individually responsible for ourselves, and we need to know who we are and how we are. And of course, that's kind of like a teaser to something you would already assume that I would say. And of course, I'll give you a series of things that I'll say about that in regards to, yes, it is very important for you to care more about what you think about yourself than anyone else. Yes, it is crucially important for you to focus in on your desires and the things that you want to do more so than anyone else. Yes, it is more important for you to have self-awareness and body acceptance and, the mentality to know that you are enough. All of those things are important. But after I say all of those things, when it comes to this position of love, it just all depends on exactly how we are representing that word. And I mean that in the sense of, there are different levels and different genres of love. There's an agape love that is really more about loving your mankind, loving people as humans, and understanding that we are all of equal status and should be treasured and respected and adored and cared for. And in the exact same sense, there is a romantic sense of love and being in a space of feeling as if your intimacy, both physical, mental, and emotional, would be shared amongst typically another individual. But then there's also a spiritual-based type love that really becomes more of a kinship. And you hear this a lot when you're talking to individuals who really describe love more on a soul tie scenario or a soul mate, right? They're really talking about it more in an aspect of it's deeper than just the physicality of it. It's deeper than just the basic intimacy. It's really something that you are connected to without even trying to be connected. And when I say who is responsible for loving you, I'm thinking about a piece of all of that. I'm thinking about an avenue to every single lane that I just said, the directions, the map to every single genre of what that is. And what I have grown to understand is that to have one and not have the other is actually the incompetence within ourselves that we don't recognize as important. Because in my world, when I say who's in charge of loving me, it's me in a trinity. It's me in a trinity. It's me in an aspect of, there's so many different facets to myself that even when I'm talking about love, I'm actually talking about all of those things. Because I feel like every single part of that is important. I am important to start as the core, as the center of it, because in order for me to exude to anyone else, when we're talking about the intimacy portion, the spirituality portion of it, the only way for me to be loved properly by anyone, right, any human, is to be aware of who I am and how I am. And then I giggle and go, that's actually the exact same definition as it would be in an agape sense. Meaning, in a sense of, if I treasure my life, and in aspect of if I treasure my culture and respect myself and want to know that everything that I want, someone else would want, then it's very easy for me to show empathy, love, support, and sympathy for others, to actually utilize the love for others just as well. Meaning, that makes sense, the agape aspect of that is still the exact same thing as it would be in the romantics, or the romanticized version of that. The difference is the intimacy and clearly the physicality, the sexual, the sensual side of it. We typically don't look at it like that. We typically throw the word love around, and we'll say, love you, girl, and I love you as just kind of like a closing remark to an email or a text, or, it's just a word that is thrown around so aimlessly that we don't really take on the aspect of understanding what it actually means, especially in the agape sense, especially in the sense of just the friendly gesture of being there. I heard a running joke, has a little bit to do with this, but not really, but it's just funny. I heard a running joke talking about, and it's like a person could be going through something, right? And they tell you all this stuff, and you're like, man, that is like so terrible that you're going through all of that stuff. Man, I'm gonna pray for you. Typically, a person is not praying beyond the point of saying, I'm gonna pray for you. Like, it is very few and far between in most people's lives that you actually remember to pray beyond the moment of what you just said right there. What I'm saying is that in the moment, in the exact moment that you're in, you are extremely sympathetic, empathetic. You are longing for the person to be healed or saved or whatever the situation is out of their circumstances, right? But you don't go beyond that. It doesn't make you say that you love or not love the person any more or less. I mean, we typically don't pray for ourselves unless we're in something traumatic to remember that that's something that we actually need to do in order to move through the process of trying to be in this prayer type life, right? And when you think of prayer, you typically think of love, and you typically think of like a person who is taking the time to know you and be there for you and all of those other things. But the truth be told, you actually forget beyond that moment. Does that mean that they don't love you, or the person doesn't love you, or they're not wishing you well? Absolutely not. But it is a true statement in understanding that we typically do for ourselves the way we do for others, and vice versa. There are a few people in the world who do not do that. They actually move in a manner where they feel like they love people harder than themselves. And trust me, they do exist. But my point would be is that you want to do your best to be responsible for yourself. And even in the position of saying to someone, please pray for me, or the person saying, without even being prompted to, I'll pray for you. The goal is to hope that you're praying for yourself and not expecting anyone else to do it for you. So it's hard in this weirdness of like Valentine's and who's responsible to give who what and all of these extra things. And we just find ourselves in all of these places of understanding. It's just the craziness of understanding that love has so many different facets and so many different angles that you can go through. You have to be conscious of which one you're in, and you have to be conscious of your state of mind, your effort, your input of how you feel about all of what you're saying that you expect and want and desire from other people, especially when you understand that there is several different genres of how you love and the way you should love and what it looks like and what the to be exclusive, I can't even say the word today, means to be to certain things and people and circumstances. It just takes you all over the place. It takes you to a place where you have to really grasp what life is in this thing called love. And I think of things like Valentine's Day, it makes me giggle because then I say, well, who's responsible for initiating this love, right? Who's responsible for making the person feel anything? Like, are we responsible for each other in an agape sense to do that? Is it required within a romantic sense? Meaning, who is designated to get the gift? In society that we live in, it's typically standard that the woman is the reciprocator of pretty much everything that's going to happen. You don't see very many things about men getting gifts for Valentine's Day. Typically, men are upset about that. I will say, I have met many a man who will absolutely tell you that they are not okay with the fact that society does not give them a place in things like that. It's really more of they are to give and they are to give big and they are to show all of these things. And the woman really is just to be able to say thank you, maybe a possible booty call at the end, and, that rectifies the whole thing. The question still remains to me, who's really responsible? In your world, who would you say is really responsible? I know in mine, I'm typically the giver. I'm typically the romantic. I'm typically the person who likes gifts. So I'm going to be more keen in respect of purchasing and buying things. Now, through the years, I've always wished and hoped that my spouse would kind of catch on to that and save and think of Valentine's Day as like a really big holiday. But again, as I've said in a previous video, our wedding anniversary falls within a few days of Valentine's Day. So he's always been able to kind of get off on the fact that our anniversary was there, so he didn't really have to focus so much on Valentine's Day. But I promise you, as I said, I'm starting to feel the pressures of wondering, like, where is all of the extra gifty things? Now, again, I don't really know where it's coming from other than the premise of, I think COVID has made everybody extra sensitive. And maybe as I've gotten older, I've just become more sensitive within it. But I definitely feel as if the responsibility lies on him. Now, you might say, well, you just said, Percita, that you got to love yourself and do all these things. Here's the funny. I do all those things. If you know me, you know that there's no shortage of Percita loving Percita. But what I also recognize is that within my own situation, it can cause your spouse to think they can't do anything for you because you're typically going to do it for yourself. So I usually am responsible for loving me, and I'm fine with that to some degree. But I realize that there's that horrible catch-22 in the self-sufficient person. You isolate yourself from allowing individuals to do anything for you because you are always doing the things for yourself. And I'm typically the person that, the cliche of what do you buy somebody who has everything, typically would be me. Simply because either the things that I like are super expensive for the average person, or they're just not something that you would think about because it seems as if on the surface I have everything. I am also not the type of person to say, just love me and that's enough. That type, I love you, who, if that's you, I really do. When you just say really cool things like, it's just really cool to be loved. And no, I'm actually looking for something tangible. I know it's kind of terrible, but just being honest. And in that, it still puts me in a place of like, after I've said all of that, what would be my expectation for my spouse to give me something? So again, when I ask the question, who's responsible for loving me, or who's responsible for loving you? It becomes all of those aspects, all of those things of like each individual thing still falls within you really being clear on loving you. I could probably do better by simply maybe voicing or directing my spouse on things that I want. Or I could do what I typically have done, which is just expect you to be paying attention to me in order for you to know what I want. I've grown to understand that the latter is just not very effective for grown people. It's very effective for people who don't really have much going on in life, and you really have all the time in the world to study someone. And you might say, and you enjoy that, let me just say it. And you might say that that's something that you do and everyone should do it. I'm just learning that everyone's love language isn't the same, so they're not necessarily going to be there. If the person's love language is loving you and spending time with you exclusively, and that's what they consider to be a gift, then understand a person like me with acts of service and gift giving would never really be suffice. So the knowledge is in still knowing what people want from you, but it also is in knowing who you are and how you fit in the story. So that in the end, yet again, you are responsible, even in the sense of a spiritual sense of love. You are responsible to actually connect to whatever your spiritual source is. It is not the spiritual source's responsibility to come to you. Sounds funny, as if it's a person, but let's just use spirituality as a person and say, if you are seeking knowledge, you are seeking it through spirituality. Spirituality being a person, you would need to extend yourself that direction in order to get something, right? So we just talked about something like prayer. That would be attached to the spiritual connection to say that is the key in order for you to find the love that you're looking for. Now, I have never heard the argument opposite of what I'm saying. I'm sure there is someone who will feel free to tell me another angle to this, but I would still tell you that in the end, after all of what I said, the responsibility still does exclusively lie within the person's self-knowledge, of course, within the person's self-awareness of what's able to happen around them, all in the sense of financially and emotionally and environmentally, right? And in the same sense, it is the person's responsibility to be in a place of acknowledgement and awareness of the person they're loving, at this stage being myself, in order to reciprocate properly. Meaning there's nothing worse than to get a gift from someone and you know that they know you, right? Like either you say that they know you based on time or based on, just the premise of like you talk to them all the time. Needless to say, you feel like they know you. You feel like that they're knowledgeable enough to really make a good decision in picking up a gift for you, and it has nothing to do with you, like absolutely nothing. Have you ever gotten a gift like that? Have you ever had a person tell you that they wanted to spend time with you and you thought you would maybe go to like lunch, back when we could go to lunch or something like that, and they call and, the time on the phone was it, but yet they knew that you were kind of looking forward to seeing them or doing something with them or, again, going to eat? That's the part that I'm saying that, that's the other person's responsibility in saying and doing what it is that they want to do. And hopefully it aligns with yours. But I'm telling you, because I'm trying to share as best I can, it is your responsibility to be clear and direct with yourself, and also being clear and direct with others to tell them exactly what it is that you're looking for. Now, when you grow to this telepathic place, and, there are a few relationships in the world, that are fairly telepathic, meaning the persons have actually taken the time to really hone in on the individual, and they hone in on the individual as they grow. Because you can also know someone and then they've outgrown what you knew and you still don't know who they are. So it's a whole other story. But those are types of relationships that I would say, I wouldn't call them goals, because I know that that's society's thing now. They're just like, anything you think that's perfect is a goal. I wouldn't necessarily say it's a goal, but I would say that that is a very freeing place to be. And it is a very soul tie place to be. And there's a lot of people who are in love and even married and still would tell you that that person that they have been connected to via marriage is not their soulmate. Some people get offended by that, but if you really understand what it is, and we'll get into it, so because this video is already super long, but you want to make sure that you are aware that they are two separate, different things altogether. So, in order for this video to not be any longer, I'm going to quickly tell you a Black history fact. Most people know of Rosa Parks as being the individual to have exclusively had the boycott happen in Montgomery, Alabama, and she did not, of course, get up, and she refused to give up her seat. There was actually an individual, a 15-year-old, who did it about 8 months prior to her, and her name was Claudette Colvin, Colvin. She was an amazing 15-year-old who just did. Again, she was a 15-year-old. I want to tell you it was March 5th or 2nd. Of course, I want to tell you again, like 1955-ish, if I recall properly. But needless to say, Claudette Colvin, and she had studied, other leaders in the Black community and just wanted to be a part of it. And she actually went on with 4 other women and fought the segregation wars in education some years later. So just want to give you that information because I told you I was going to do better with my Black history facts. And that is just something and someone you should know by name, Claudette Colvin. I'm not sure if she's still alive, but again, Rosa Parks is who we typically know because of the boycotts happening in Montgomery, Alabama, because she refused to give her seat and moved to the back of the bus. Again, there was an individual prior to her, another Black female. Of course, power to the Black women of the world. She did not do it close to 9 months prior to that. So it's always good to acknowledge people who don't get acknowledged, but it's amazing to think that had just been something that 2 women decided that they didn't want to do. But, she wasn't even necessarily a woman because that would have made her close to, what would that be? Like 8-9 years younger than, no, I take that back. Because I believe Rosa Parks was in her late 20s, maybe mid-30s when she did it. And again, she was 15. So how remarkable is that? I'll have to get the actual age of Rosa Parks because I'm not sure. But anyway, just wanted you to know that quick Black history fact. Outside of all of that, again, love is like such an interesting topic. You can really go on and on about it. And it just has so many different differentiationals to it. It's so many things that we blame on love, right? But it was just kind of fun to really try to touch on it a little bit to identify how important it is for you to be aware of you, but it's really important for you to also be aware of just other people and their capacity and understanding like what it is that they can actually take in about you to be a better person to themselves and yourself. So, again, happy Valentine's Day. I hope I didn't bombard you too much with the love aspect, but do note, loving someone and having someone love you back is the most amazing feeling. And I wish it for everyone. This season, any season, every day of the year, there's nothing better than that type of support. So, since I won't see you for Valentine's Day, happy Valentine's Day. If you are single, still happy Valentine's Day because there's nothing better than still knowing that you are you, right? And you are still loving you regardless. So, see you Tuesday. Always remember to do 3 things. Live life authentic. Live life authentic. Thank you so much. I'll see you Tuesday. Hope you have a blessed weekend. Bye-bye.